So there's a video that I've been wanting to do for a little while on selling your antlers. Some of you have sold lots of antlers and maybe even buy antlers, and video wouldn't really be for you, but there's a lot of people that maybe haven't sold antlers or haven't sold that many antlers, and even some people that have sold a lot of antlers. You might be able to pick something up. I just wanted to go over a couple of things. I've noticed that I mean, there's tons of people anymore buying antlers, and you want to make sure that when you sell your antlers, you get a good deal. I mean, you work hard for them, and you put in a lot of time and effort and money, and so if you're going to be selling them, you want to be able to get the best money you can out of them. At the same time, the antler buyer, you know, they have to make money. If they're not making money, they're not going to spend all the gas, spend all the time to drive from town to town and buy antlers. So they're watching out for themselves. This video is sort of to help you make sure that you can watch out for yourself. I've noticed that whenever I got a new horn antler buyer come through, the first time they buy from you, they're usually pretty generous because they want to get your business, especially if they know that you're the type of person that might be a regular seller, might be able to be a regular source of antlers for them. They're usually pretty good about grading things fairly and giving you the best price possible. I've noticed sometimes they'll even upgrade an antler or two to try and get your business. And then over time that you notice that things start to change and things get rated differently. And I've had that happen a few times where I'm pretty loyal, and if somebody treats me well, I'll usually save everything I've got and just hold on to it till that person comes back around and sell to them. But lately, for example, the last person that I was selling my sheds to, last year, I took him a bunch of antlers, and there was other people there. We were just kind of shooting the breeze and talking and everything, and he was kind of doing this thing, and I sold him antlers so many times that I didn't really pay that close of attention, which is a mistake. And when it got all done and I kind of looked over at the piles, I thought, well, man, he's got a lot of stuff over there in the junk pile. He's got a lot of stuff in the chalk pile. But I didn't think too much of it because, again, we were talking and doing other stuff and kind of just did it and didn't think a whole lot of it. But it was on my mind the next time I went and sold. I noticed the same thing. A lot of antlers that used to be chalk were now junk. A lot of stuff that was hard white was now chalk. And so I tried somebody else 2 times, and the same thing. You know, I've sold antlers for quite a while. I've sold a lot of antlers, and the honest truth is, you know, your difference between hard white and chalk and junk is where you make your money and where the antler buyer makes his money. He is usually, if he's going to try and make some money off of you, more than just his, markup per pound, they're going to try and do it on that grading, right in that borderline. So I'm going to go over real quick some things to watch out for and some things to know if you're going to be selling your antlers. So now everybody knows what a brown is, right? Brown antler is basically this year's antler. That antler was on the ground for maybe a week before I picked it up. That antler was on the ground for about a week before I picked it up. That's a brown antler. Now, brown antler does not necessarily mean that it just has brown on it, because if you'll look at this antler here, and on this side, this antler is actually darker than this antler. However, this one is a brown antler, and this one is going to go as chalk. So you need to make sure that you know that you're going to be graded on the worst part of the antler. The worst side of the antler is going to be where your grading comes in. So you've got your browns, and everybody knows what browns are. Next grading that you'll get is going to be hard whites. Now, typically hard whites is last year's antlers. You can get hard whites for even 2 and 3 years old if they're in some cover and some shade. Maybe got leaves on them. A hard white antler is still a solid antler. You'll notice there's little to no cracking. There may be a little bit, you can get a little bit of cracking, minor cracking on even a brown antler sometimes, but for the most part, a hard white antler has been bleached from the sun. It's no longer brown, but it is a solid antler. No cracks, and it's in good shape. The next grade down, and I'm not going to give prices because prices are, you know, they fluctuate some, but typically your hard whites are going to be half to a little bit more than half of what you'd get for your brown antlers. And then below that you've got chalk. So now this antler right here would go as chalk. You notice we're starting to get some splitting on both of these. They're white, you know, significant splitting. And that's probably what most of the antlers you're going to find. Most of the antlers you find are going to go as chalks. At least for me, in my experience, probably at least 50% or more of the antlers you find are going to be chalk, just because an antler is chalk usually from its second or third year of hitting the ground until 10 or 15 years. It depends on the, you know, out here we can have antlers 20 years on the ground because it's dry, and they'll look better than they will some places after they've been on the ground for a week, you know, because we don't have a ton of chewing damage and stuff like that. So chalk is where, that's basically gas money. If you can pick up some chalks, you can usually pay for your gas and pay for a trip to go back out and find more. So I like to find chalks. The grade below that is what they call junk. Junk is often pink. It can be flaking and falling apart. The pitting is significant. It's really just starting to degrade. All three of these are actually, I don't have any because I don't typically, if I know it's going to be junk, I won't bring it in. And so a fairly generous antler buyer would actually probably give you chalk on all of those right there. A more strict or more stingy one might put all three of those in the junk pile. Now the difference between junk and chalk, junk is anywhere from 50 cents to $1 a pound, and chalk can be $2 or $3 a pound, all the way up to sometimes $5 or $6 depending on the buyer. But again, a big significant. So anything that looks worse than that, if it's starting to fall apart, I mean, it's just, if you pick it up, you try to strap it to your pack and it breaks in half, stuff like that, you've probably got a junk antler. And sometimes it's worth packing those out if you're not too far away and you don't have a bunch of other stuff on your pack. Man, bring the chalks out, bring the junk out, and you can make a little bit of money off of them. And those are your, basically you've got brown, hard white, chalk, and junk. What you'll find, the place where you'll lose the most of your money is the hard white to chalk. Every antler buyer is going to be a little bit more strict or a little bit different on what is junk and what is chalk and what is hard white. If you have an antler buyer that is giving you chalk prices for hard white antlers, you're losing a lot of money, more than any other jump on grade. That's a big hit. You take an antler like this right here, that's probably a 12 or 13 pound antler easily, maybe even 14. Big heavy bull like that. Let's say you were getting $8 a pound for them for hard white, and that antler, if it was a hard white like these ones, if that one got tossed into the chalk pile and you weren't paying attention, you lose a significant amount of money, maybe $50 or $60 difference in what you would have got versus what you should have got versus what you got. So just a few things to keep in mind. Like I said, the antler buyers, they got to make their money, and they can't be giving you, think of it from the antler buyer's perspective. If he gives you hard white on this antler right here, and then he goes to his buyer to sell it, and that buyer gives him chalk for that antler, then he's just taking a big hit. So you do have to realize that they have to have, they have to also protect what you need to be aware of, what what the game is sometimes. And when they're honest with you, the antler buyers will tell you they make their money right there in that gap between hard white and chalk. The more hard white they can buy at chalk price, the more money they make. The more chalk they can buy at junk price, the more money they make. And you just got to educate yourself so that you know that you're not getting... Sorry, boss called me right as I was finishing that up. Anyway, purpose of the video is just so you can educate yourself and be aware, of where the pitfalls are of selling your antlers. Find an honest. There's a lot of great antler buyers out there, and there's also some that will take advantage of you if they can, and if they know that you don't know what you're talking about. I had a couple people come to me recently asking me some of these questions because they thought they were being cheated, and when we kind of talked about it, it's obvious that they were being cheated. So let them make some money, and you make some money off your hard-earned antlers. Just make sure that you're getting paid brown for browns and hard whites for hard whites, and getting chalk price for chalk, and that if you pack that junk in, we'll be aware it's going to be junk. If it's pink and crumbling, that's typically junk. So just to be aware of what you might encounter if you go to sell your antlers.